Our next topic is on ties and dots. So, as musicians, we like to be different and difficult sometimes, and we want a song to sound a specific way. So, let's observe the time signature 2/4. What does that mean?
Two crotchet beats.
Two crotchet beats in the bar. So there's our bar. Right, all happy? And then maybe at the end we say, right, we want one long note and we do a minim there. All good?
Yes.
Right, you all understand that?
Yes.
So, let's say for instance, I want this note to maybe sound a bit longer. Can I write this? Why? Yes.
Because the minim has the value of 2 crotchets.
Yeah?
So then it's going
Yeah, but it's
to
supposed
be
to start lasting a bit longer. I can't do it simply because it's not true to my time signature. The time signature must be true for every bar. Okay? So, what do? I tie this note over to that note. Okay, can I illustrate this to you? I'm going to clap the first one, and I'm going to clap the second one, and then you hopefully will realize what's happening here. Okay, follow closely. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Got it? Watch the second one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So what happened? I clapped there, I held it for both notes, and then I clapped there again. So what happens? What is the value of this note? A crotchet. 1 beat, right? What is the value of this note? A minim. Because you only sing or play or clap on the first note, but you hold it for both. Does it make sense? Alright, so let's clap together again so you can get a feel for it. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ah, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I think we should do the second one again. Okay, watch. Clap, clap, and hold. Clap, clap. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1. We don't clap on that, no. Again, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. You all understand it a bit better?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you have experienced it. Okay, so there are some prerequisites for a tie. If you look in your book, the very first sentence under the heading ties and dots, topic 6, a tie joins 2 notes of the same pitch that are next to each other. I can't tie this note to this one because there's something in between. They must be next to each other and they must be the same pitch. What do we say? What do we mean with the same pitch? They must have the same letter name. So we can assign letter names. Let's say C, B, B, A, G. So it's going to sound like this. Let's quickly make this C, B, B, A, G. The top one will sound like this. The bottom one will sound like this. Okay?
Oh, I see.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Alright. The 2 prerequisites. They must be next to each other and they must be the same pitch. They must have the same letter name. Okay? The moment we use this thing, we call it a slur, but if it's for a tie, like in this case, 2 notes of the same pitch next to each other and they get the same time value, or this one gets the time value of both, we call it a tie. When we do it over 2 notes that are not the same, it's something completely different, but you will find that. But it's something totally different. That's got to do with articulation. You don't have to know that. Here, it'll be the same letter name, notes right next to each other. So, if you look at your exercise, add ties wherever possible in the following, then complete the sentences. There's your example. Now, this is how I want you to explain this to me in musical terms, not the fourth note in the third space after that long line. That's not musical terms. So if you look at your example, what do you find? You find, if you look at it from the beginning, you see a treble clef, you see a time signature of 2/4, then you see an F, yes, letter name F, G, A, tied over the bar line to another A, both of them crotchets, and then a C. If I asked you, where would you find the tie? You're going to tell me it is in the first bar on the second beat over the bar line to the first beat of the second bar. How do I know it's the first and second beat? Your time signature says 2 crotchet beats in the bar. The 2 first quavers will make up your first crotchet beat. Then you've got a crotchet, that's your second beat. Then you have a bar line, then you have a crotchet, which is your first beat, and another crotchet, which is your second beat. Does it make sense? Okay. Let's see if you can use that in 1A. Try and identify, first of all, 2 notes next to each other of the same pitch. If you have it, you put up your hand. Okay, the answer is this. The third beat of bar 1 is an E. Did you all find that? Show me. Point at the E, the third beat of bar 1. So your tie is going to go, that's something else. That E, what's the note value? Crotchet. Then there's a bar line. Then there's another E, right? What is that, a quaver? Yes, it's a quaver, but it's tied to another note, whatever that note is. So your tie is going to go from this note to that note. They are both E's and they are next to each other. So again, your tie goes from the E on the third beat of the first bar to the E, the first beat of the second bar. So, then we fill in underneath the example. The note what lasts for how many crotchet beats? The note E lasts for 1.5 crotchet beats. Why 1.5? A crotchet has got 1 beat and a quaver is half of that. So it's 1.5 beats. Let's go to B. Again, find 2 notes next to each other. That's on the same pitch, same letter name, and point at the first note for me. The note what? What is that letter name? We're on treble clef, third line. Every good boy. The note B lasts for how many crotchet beats? 1.25 crotchet beats. Who can tell me why it's 1.25? Yes, can you say? Semiquaver. If you look back on your very first page. Crotchet split into half. Would give you quavers. Split it into another half, which would give you a quarter, would give you semiquavers. So if, in this case, I'm not going to change the pitch, but it's a semiquaver. So it is a crotchet plus a semiquaver. Crotchet is 1 count. Semiquaver on its own is quarter of a count. Okay. Do C quickly. Now there are 2. Find 2 of them. The tied notes that and that. Each lasts for how many crotchets? Quickly do it. Put up your hand when you're done. Tell us quickly. First one.
I got notes
B and E. Remember we're in the bass clef. Gary backs. And then the second one is all cows eat. So B and E. Each lasts for 1¼ crotchets. You are going to do page 14 after this, but before we do page 14 as your homework, now we get to dots. So, what we did here up to now is ties. By the way, did you see that in A and B the tie was over a bar line? But in C, neither of the two went over a bar line. So it doesn't have to be over a bar line. It often is, but it doesn't have to be. Let's say in this case, I now want the first note. Oh, another pen is not going. The first note to be longer than the second note. So I could do this. Let's do it like that. Concentrate. Okay? So what I did was, I took half of the second crotchet and I added it with a tie to the first note. And the other half, which would be a quaver on its own. Does it make sense? Okay? So I made the first note a bit longer. Now, ties are not so easy to read when you have to play it. If it's over a bar line, somehow it reads easier. But within a bar, it could be a little bit tricky sometimes. So, another way of doing it is writing it like this. And the rest. What have I done? I have taken the value of the quaver and added it to the crotchet. Okay? Now, to make it easier, this dot with the crotchet itself, it's a little bit difficult because the wording is a bit confusing. I'm going to start with a semi-brief. How many counts in the semi-brief? 4. How many counts in a dotted semi-brief? So what happens is this dot equals half of the note value. So if the note is 4, what is the value of the dot? 2, which in total gives you 6. If you can do really advanced maths. 4 plus 2. What's the value of that note?
2.
A minimum counts 2. What is the value of the dot
3.
next to a minimum? No.
Yeah.
Think. Listen to my question. What is the value of the dot next to a minimum?
Oh, 1.
1. What is the value of a dotted minimum in total? 3. You'll now see why I mean this could be confusing. What is the value of the dot next to a crotchet? Half. So don't, in your head, remember that dot does not mean add a half. For a crotchet it does. So a crotchet is 1 count and a dot is half a count, which makes it 1.5. But the dot next to a semi-brief is half of the note. It's not 4.5 counts. It is 4 plus that 2, which is the half of 4. Do you see what I'm saying? Here, the half is a half. Half of a crotchet is half a count. That's why it's 1.5. Let's do some maths quickly. What is the value of a dot quaver? Three-quarter of a count. How do we get to that? Look at this. What is that?
Apple, peach. Apple.
There's not a peach.
Okay, I'm not the best artist, right? My art is all abstract. I don't do realistic art. Let's say it's an apple, just for now. first I cut the apple in half, and then I cut one of the halves in half. A quaver is half a count. Half of that half I'm adding to it. That's 3/4. Hmm?
But that's like what?
Do you understand why?
You?
We can even do this mathematically. And you'll see that there's a lot of maths in music. So if I say half plus quarter, that means 2/4 plus 1/4 is 3/4. A dotted quaver is half plus quarter, which will give you 3/4. Let's do one more. Now you're going to have to do serious maths. My pen lasts. Let's work it out. So, what do we have? We have a quarter plus an eighth, which means 2/8 plus 1 is 3/8. Remember, it's a quarter. 2/8 is a quarter.
Where did the 8 come from?
Oh!
Where did the 8 come from?
See, I was right.
2/8.
Well, I'm the teacher after.
Oh, God, you have to make the fraction.
2/8 plus 1/8 will give you 3/8.
Do math. Oh, where did it come from?
So the value of a dotted semiquaver is 3/8. Okay, now, on page 14, number 2, write the correct number in each of the blank spaces. They don't go into so much maths, don't worry. Just trying to illustrate to you how to work it out. So if you see something simple, you can also work it out. I think it only goes down to like 3/4. So write the correct number in each of the blank spaces below, and in number 3, write one dotted note at the places marked with a star as to complete the bars. Let's quickly have a look at that. So what I want you to do is, from now on, get used to the fact of circling full beats. What do I mean? Have a look at 3A. 3A, what is your time signature? 4 crotchet beats in the bar. What do you see in the first bar? I see a star and a crotchet. What does a time signature tell us there must be? 4 crotchets. Now, look how simple it is. Look here, look up. The time signature says I should have 4 crotchets. What do I see? 1 crotchet. What do I need? 3 crotchets. Which note would I give if I put 3 crotchets together? Remember, it says write one dotted note. So your answer will always be a dotted note. I take 3 crotchets, I put them together. Which note will I get? Dotted minimum. Do you get it? Let's go to the second bar. Tell me what it is that you see. I see a crotchet, a quaver and 2 semiquavers beamed together, a star and a quaver, not a semiquaver. Okay, what would I do? This is what I'm telling you to do. Circle the crotchet. Do it. Circle the crotchet. Then, the quaver and 2 semiquavers together in value, and that you are right, will also give you a crotchet. Circle those 3 notes together. So you've circled the crotchet, you've circled the quaver and 2 semiquavers. Now, what does our time signature say? How many crotchets must we have in the bar?
4.
Still 4. What have we ruled out? The 1 crotchet and the quaver and 2 semiquavers, which is value to the crotchet, at a crotchet as well. What are we stuck with? 2 crotchets would we still need to do. What do we have there? half of this one, because it's a quaver. What do we need? That's the half. We need 1.5, which will give you a dotted crotchet. Let's do it again. Okay, look at your second bar in your book. You circled the crotchet. Yes? You circled the quaver and 2 semiquavers. The rest, what you see is a star and a quaver. Right. Your time signature says that you've got to have 4 crotchets in the bar. 4, 4. You've got one that you circled. You've got the quaver and 2 semiquavers that you circled. So whatever is left in the bar must be equal to 2 crotchets. At the end of that bar, you've got a quaver, which is half of this crotchet. So what do you need? 1.5 counts. Which note, which dotted note is valued at 1.5 counts? A dotted crotchet. So under the star, you're going to write a dotted crotchet. Do you see why I'm making you circle the full beats? So you can identify them easily. Also, when you get into the habit of doing that, the next section on rests is going to be easier. Okay, so finish that page 14 as well, please.